And we're live. Welcome to the next installment of Azure Cloud Talk. I'm one of your co-hosts, Alec Harrison, here with Brian and our special guest, now clearly reigning MVP for most popular guest, Kevin Griffin. How's it going, Kevin?
Hey, I'm good, guys. Yeah, thanks for thinking of me. I love you guys. I'm like the unofficial, third co-host.
Right? You pretty much are. In fact, I think pretty soon, if I wouldn't have been here today, you might have even overtaken me. It'd be pretty close.
Well, haha.
So now he's got a secret
plan
plan.
now.
Yeah. Nice.
Now MVP contributions are coming up here pretty soon, right on the horizon. Kevin's going to put optional alternative co-host to Azure Cloud Talk.
I don't even think I listed it, to be honest. So if Kevin listed and I don't, that would be just funny.
I forgot I should add these podcasts to my
really
MVP
should.
profile. Yeah.
Their contributions.
Me too. Except for I don't keep up with how many times I've actually been here.
So Simplecast has a fun thing where we can log the guests, but I don't think there's an easy way to search it. So every time I put a new episode out, I make sure to log, even if it's just me and you, Brian, to log us as contributors, because I think some podcast platforms will show that. But
Sure.
I don't know if Simplecast makes an easy way to search that to be get me all the episodes Brian was on. So you just be do.
Sounds like a job for a Copilot agent.
Yeah, we had some fun. I was just at two different user groups where we were talking about AI and responsible AI. And I think I was talking to a recruiter because, recruiting companies like to sponsor user groups, which is awesome. But it's another way to get their name out there, network with people in the community, bring people together. They flew somebody up from Tampa who works at Microsoft now. I think, Kevin, you might have been connected with him. I'm going to have to quickly, on the fly, pull up LinkedIn. Brian Swigner? I could be wrong.
Oh, it sounds familiar. I'm not placing a face, though, so maybe.
He gave a talk on AI, but I was just having a fun conversation with a recruiter because, I do generative AI every day. It's cool, it's fun, but I would be so woefully underqualified for a traditional AI data scientist role because what I'm doing today is basically observability and then just doing integrations, right? So you have your OpenAI, all that sort of stuff. So it's just enough AI that I can sound competent to people who don't know AI, but I'm sure as soon as a data scientist or an ML expert would talk to you, they'd be like, you're an idiot. Go away.
Is ML and data science really AI, though?
Well, and that's the other thing. That's sometimes an AI role, but
Right.
I would argue it's not because, even on the ML and data side, you have the data pipelines, right, to even get your data into a place and state that you could get it. You could be an ETL person as your whole career. Are you a data scientist then? By just moving data around and getting it into a uniform format?
It's almost like it's the back end and the front end again. The AI that we typically say is kind of more the front end and the back end is more the data science. I don't know. Maybe I'm crazy.
Well, I think we're going at such a breakneck pace.
It's whatever you can convince someone to pay you for. You can convince someone to call you a data scientist and pay you for it, then cool, job done.
Okay.
It's crazy because I think there's this FOMO along with some companies are actually starting to report real productivity gains with AI, right? They're showing that, hey, we are X% more productive. I don't know about you guys, development wise, AI has been a huge boost for me, especially with boilerplate junk. I can just tab and actually get to the real problem.
I would push back on that. Me and a cursor composer agent mode have been having words. Literally before jumping on this recording, I'm fighting with composer saying, do you bleep on this? Because you'd be like, what the, why can't you figure this out? You're going around in circles. You're so close to the solution. And then you right turn, just go in a different direction. You are so close to figuring this out. And it's to the extent where I'm like, man, have I just spent so much time fighting with the AI that I could have just done the work? And I don't know. I think I've hit this loop way too many times where I'm like, I know how to solve the solution. I'm using the AI because I don't want to spend the hour or two to do the work. But now I've been fighting with the AI for 2 hours. I could have just done the work. And so I don't know if it's a productivity gain. Maybe I'm just working on harder problems. I don't know. And it's all about prompt writing and giving the right context. And I feel like I'm doing all that stuff. The AI is just...
I've been doing a lot since Writer has the GitHub Copilot connector now. So you can do like GitHub Copilot chat, and the client I'm at pays for GitHub Copilot licenses for everybody. If you ask it to do something, it always gives you like the very generic, this is in C# too, the super generic throwing in a using block, the thing you're trying to do, and it does it. One thing it seems to fall short on, and I don't know if it's a Writer thing, because I know in VS Code it doesn't do this, but it like, no matter what context I give it, it almost never throws it in unless it generated the like using block first, and I just copy and paste that verbatim. There's some weird disconnect there, but to your point, like I've been doing some fairly basic stuff like reading from a file. I don't want to Google how to use that package, or parsing a string with regex. I can just be like, here's the string I want to parse out. It's been amazing because I just copy paste. I don't leave my IDE. I'm off to the races. I could see when you start getting into some deeper stuff, it does struggle from time to time. But for the most part of what I do, it's like changing, doing UIs that are just showing backend data, or, hey, I'm creating a front end model. And it's like, oh, hey, that's the same name as your backend model. Here's how you do that now in TypeScript. And it has been really great at auto doing a lot of that for me personally. But that's not hard work. It's just a matter of, instead of me typing it out, I can just tab and slow micro gains, right? Of like, that would have taken me a minute to type the same definition, but instead it took me 2 seconds and it's there.
So I've been doing, I guess, deeper work with AI. So using Cursor's Composer agent, like I'll say, here is a Swagger definition for an API I have. I want you to generate the TypeScript connector for it, and I want you to go over to this view component. I want you to go call the API, get the data back, and I want you to use this obscure component that I have to populate it. And I would actually give it a fairly well-written prompt, and like it will go do it. Like it. And what I love about agent mode is you can kind of just press go get a cup of coffee, and when you come back, it's like, hey, I've updated like 5-6 files. Go take a look, and you just cycle through. It's like, oh, okay, this makes sense. The problem I had before I got here was I gave it context of a bunch of SQL tables, and I said, I need to write a query. And this query, I was very specific about it. You need to know about this little piece of context, this context, go pull these rows, go pull those rows. You need to do the sandwich joining thing, because I really need one row that has all this information in it. You can figure this out. You're smart. I believe in you, AI. And it goes off. It does something that looks like the result. And I think this is going to be the key for anyone using AI. You have to be smart enough to look at the result and go, that's wrong. And it even helps if you know why it's wrong. So you can go back to the AI and be like, hey, you did this wrong. And like the most frustrating thing that AI does, I might need to go check like my preconditioned custom prompt to say, it goes, quote, I see the problem. I'm like, no, you don't, because you screwed it up again. Sorry. I have a love-hate relationship with AI, and I'm just coming off of this because it will say that every time. Oh, I see the issue. Oh, I see the issue. Oh, I see the issue. Well, if you were so dang smart, why didn't you see that before you said you were done?
Why did you have to give me something and then say, oh yeah, there's an issue in my code? Fix it the first time.
Yep.
I love when you do that and it keeps going back and forth and like giving you the same answer that it just gave you, and you just get stuck in a loop. And it's like, no, you don't, because we're in the loop of, you see the problem. No, you don't. Oh yeah, here's and then you're just like in this loop. It's A, no, it's B, no, it's A, no, it's B. And you're like,
and it starts regenerating code that you already said was wrong.
Yes,
and you're
exactly.
It's like circular, like dependency of itself.
One thing that was brought up that I thought was kind of interesting is there was people in the back of one of my user groups talking about how do you cheaply, the talk that I talked about, Brian giving, not Brian Gorman, but was multi-agent conversation, which is basically, it's funny because Scott Hanselman showed a video of this. I'll try to link it in there, but basically people reinvented dial-up for agent-to-agent communication on different devices.
I saw that. Yep.
Yeah.
Yes. But what you can do with multi-agents is basically behind the scenes, they can all communicate with each other. The downside to that is they can talk basically at the speed of light, and you're paying per token. And if you don't give them a proper exit condition, your bill just went instead of needing, a human at the other end to prompt it. So they're like, I think there's two questions I have for you guys. There is how do you continue to experiment and learn when new things like this and not break the bank? Because it's probably not your day job to learn. And then two, in your careers, how has that helped propel you to where you are today? I assume, Kevin, we were talking before this, you're kind of an accidental CTO. Brian, talking to you, I don't think when you first started off, your goal was to be a trainer and teach people stuff. It just kind of ended up there. How have you guys done that without, I don't know, losing everything because you spent so much money on just trying to keep up with tech and all the cool, shiny learning tools?
Well, I can tell you that I had an epiphany about becoming a trainer about 3 or 4 years into my career as a full-time developer. Somewhere in there, I was commuting back and forth between Des Moines and Ames at the time. And I just remember thinking that I just really enjoy teaching and not as much the doing. Those who can't do teach, right? That's the old saying. But no, it was just dumb luck that I got into it. But I want to specifically go, you said something that really rang true to me. So when Azure first came out, Azure was not free, right? So I actually found alternatives to Azure early on. And I did things like, there was a place called App Harbor, which was a place where you could host your apps. And it was $10 a month to get a SQL server and $10 a month for a domain. And the rest of it was free. And it was a charge that was constant and guaranteed. So you didn't have to worry about what just changed or what happened, because App Harbor was actually I think it was just a wrapper around AWS, to be honest. I think they just hosted AWS services as their own platform, kind of became a middleman, which was honestly a genius decision on their part if that's what they were doing, because it was great. And I even had in my MVC course that I created somewhere in the 15 range to 2015 range, I even specifically said, we're going to do App Harbor because I can get a free SQL server that's basic from them. Or you could, if you really wanted to, you could get a more powerful MySQL instance for $10 a month or whatever. Either one you could get pretty free. It was pretty cheap. Kind of circle back. So I basically started talking and I said something to the effect of, when Azure first came out, it wasn't free, right? So we had to find alternatives. And one of the alternatives I found was App Harbor. You could do a lot of stuff at App Harbor. It was really cheap compared to Azure, and it was a fixed and guaranteed cost. So as Azure matured and Microsoft matured around the Azure ecosystem, they started doing things like, if you got a Visual Studio subscription, you can get $50 a month or $100 or $150 a month, which lowered the barrier of entry, but it still wasn't free if you didn't have those. And as an independent at the time, I didn't have those. So I was still avoiding it until I got on full-time developer again. And then I was like, oh, now I can use Azure. And so in the last few years, honestly, just basically Azure has gotten to the point where it's nearly free to do a lot of stuff. And you still have some stuff that's experimental and has cost, but getting an app service in Azure now or getting a static web app is generally free, unless you want to do more production level with it, right? Which is crazy. That's awesome. That's what it needs to be. So where I'm going with all this is, you're saying, how do I learn AI without breaking the bank? You stay up with what's going on as much as you can. You see what other people are doing in their videos. And as it matures and the cost lowers and the barrier to entry lowers, or there's more robust control around what you're spending, so you don't spend $5,000 a month storing your voice on a server somewhere, then you can start doing more with it to not break the bank.
The idiot would do that.
I don't know.
I don't know anybody.
On accident, not like you did it on purpose.
Yeah, I misunderstood the pricing. And yeah, there is if you do your own custom voice, there is a just hosting your voice fee. And I've been told well, granted, this was almost 2 years ago now, probably at that point, and that was a steal of a deal, I've been told, in that industry. But Now with Riverside being able to do that, 11 Labs, all these different companies, I imagine the cost to do custom voice is probably dropped exponentially.
Right. And that's
'Cause
exactly
AI
what I'm
has.
saying. As it matures,
Yeah.
the prices will go down. Unless you get ChatGPT 4.5, apparently.
I saw the price on that. That sucker's crazy.
Isn't that unbelievable? Like, okay,
Yeah,
we'll wait to use that.
Isn't it 30 times more expensive
It's like-
than 4.0?
I think it was like $5 a month for 4.0. It's like $75 a month for 4.5. So
million tokens, yeah.
orders of magnitude more expensive.
But
Well,
in
and
3
it's-
months, it'll be down to the $5.
There we go. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Wait 3 months and then you can play with the new model.
Yeah. Well, and the work I do, we use GPT 4.0 mini because it's good enough. And you're talking like cents for millions of tokens, not dollars. I think that's the other thing people get caught up in is they want to get caught up in the hype and the latest and greatest thing. And like, oh my goodness, like the multi-model conversation. The takeaway of the talk last night was don't do this unless you need to. Because every model that you add is going to increase your cost. As they talk to each other, it increases your cost. So just don't if you can help it, because if your single agent can do everything you need to do, which that's a different conversation of at what point is your LLM now an agent. But for the most part, single agents can get a lot of stuff done, and you don't need to worry yourself with how do you orchestrate an LLM. It's like I would put it the same as like going microservices when you really only have like one core business function. Like you could do that, but by the time you get like microservices, or if you try to do micro front ends on top of that, like your orchestration is heavier than like the actual work you're doing. And that pyramid doesn't stand.
I think my general philosophy is I don't do bleeding edge. Like I had that period in my life where I was trying to be as bleeding edge as possible. And then I just found myself in a situation where I had too much work to do. So I didn't really have the luxury of sitting around just trying bleeding edge stuff. I had to get paid. And it's a special type of person who's able to sit around and get paid to do bleeding edge work. So I will do cutting edge. Like let's go a level down when it becomes appropriate and I see it starting to pick up steam and people have already figured out the problems with it. And we're talking about anything, right? Not just AI, but just any technology out there. Once people have worked out the kinks and it's now production level or like general availability, then that's something I can jump on and I can start putting into my workflows, or at least be aware enough of what something does to see how it might be useful to me. But I'm a huge fan of just boring old it works tech, and it solves the problem because you know what? They pay the same. And I have far fewer frustrations with the stuff that just works than the stuff that's bleeding edge. Now, it's not to say that we don't integrate cutting edge stuff into our day to day. We're just more pragmatic about it. It's got to make sense, or there's potential for it to, save us money. It either has to save us money or it has to improve a workflow. It can't just be shiny for the sense of shiny. I think there's a lot of people out there that just chase the shiny, and I'm not one of those people.
How has that helped you? You kind of made a comment of being the the accidental CTO.
Yeah.
I think one thing you touched on there that I think a lot of engineers miss is, and I could be totally wrong, so tell me if I am, but being able to talk about the business justification for what you're doing, whether it's saving us money, making something easier to maintain. Do you credit that as kind of the reason why you're maybe the accidental CTO instead of just like a programmer in some dark basement somewhere?
Yeah, I think so. Ultimately, everything that we do, you, Alec, Brian, me, everyone listening, ultimately we're being paid to perform a job, and we're being paid by a business. If you are an independent consultant, you're being paid by a business as a consultant. If you are running a product, you have customers who are paying you to solve a problem. That boils down to, does it make business sense in whatever you're doing? Now, I call myself the accidental CTO because I'm the quote CTO for a client of mine, Shows on Sale. And I've been working with them for over 10 years. And I started as just freelance consultants, helping them with bits here and there, but grew into helping them go through 2 acquisitions and going from a team of me to a team of 7 developers and coordinating one product that I was working on to now coordinating. I did a count. I actually need to go back and do the count. It's like 7, 8 products. Like, we do a lot, and a lot, like, and ultimately the folks that pay me, that have trusted me to build and manage this platform, don't know jack about the technology underneath the scenes, and they don't care. And what they care about is, Kevin, does this solve our problem? We want our customers to be able to do X, Y, and Z. And I go, cool. And it doesn't matter if I do that. I could solve that problem now in .NET 9, ASP.NET. I could use Blazor, blah, blah, blah. Or I could use web forms to solve the exact same problem. Now, I wouldn't be as happy writing web forms. Don't get me wrong. Like, I'm using
web forms out of support anyway.
I mean, but the point is, like, it doesn't matter the tech stack because the business doesn't care. Now, we have a situation where we were spinning out a whole bunch of just static HTML. It was decorated with a little bit of, get this, jQuery, and we were injecting a little bit of Vue here and there. Like, it was a Frankenstein of an app. And the business cases were coming in like, hey, can you do this? Could you do this? Could you do this? It was all front end stuff, and went. So the answer is yes, we could do that. But in the way we're currently solving the problem, it's a lot of work. So what we should do is we should upgrade our UI. So we're in the middle of a big UI upgrade process. So we can do all this business centric stuff, but it makes sense for the business now. If the business was never asking me to solve these particular problems or implement these features a certain way, we probably would have never gone that way, just upgrading our UI, because like, people were still paying for the product that we had. And like right now, they're still paying for static HTML that's decorated with a little bit of jQuery and Vue. But in order to, we weren't going to upgrade it just to make ourselves happy, because you have to remember, every single time you touch software, the potential for it breaking goes up exponentially. So the system that we're running right now has been running for 7, 8 years, like, in production. Like, it's pretty good solid code. Like, solid code that we make very few tweaks to, we don't touch very often. It does its job. And now we're going through and we're uplifting all that. So what does that mean? When we launch it, we're going to spend at least a month just fixing issues we didn't find in testing and QA or user acceptance and stuff like that. It's just a headache.
Yeah, but won't you feel so much better now that it's modern?
I mean, maybe. I think I will a couple sprints afterwards where it's like, oh, we can finally implement this feature that business has been asking for, because now we have all this other infrastructure that exists. And so I spend a lot of time trying to figure out the best way to explain, we can't go from A to B. We're trying to go from A to X, and we have to go to B, C, D, everything in between. Like, there's so many steps to go from what we have now to where we want to be. Like, business owners, non-technical owners don't understand all the steps involved. And I've been really lucky. Like, the folks I work for are amazing, because if I sit down and just explain to them, there's a couple steps involved, and they're like, you know what? We trust you, Kevin. Like, you haven't let us down yet, so go take time and do what you think you need to do.
Greenfield.
Well, no. Oh my gosh, no. Everyone out there is like, why is Kevin hating on Greenfield? Because y'all have never done a Greenfield application that's lasted longer than 6 months, probably. That's why. Like, Brownfield,
interesting challenge.
all the way.
Interesting
all
challenge.
the way. Greenfield, great, until you deploy it and go, oh my gosh, there are so many issues with this.
Somebody wrote the Brownfield as a Greenfield at some point, though. So it was a Greenfield at one point.
It was at one point. And then you learn all the lessons, you fix all the issues, and it becomes fairly stable. And you know what you do? You leave it alone.
Why are you drinking Romulan ale from a KCDC glass?
It is Gatorade.
It looks like Romulan
from
ale.
A KCDC glass.
Sorry.
I think one thing people get sidetracked on, or maybe don't get recognized or exposed to, is like, let's say it's a special breed to work with a small company like you did, Kevin, or it's kind of a unique experience, because the vast majority of people, I would say, get into a big enterprise. It's already there.
Yeah.
There's not really any real fear or worry of if this project blows up, the entire company is going to fall over.
Yeah.
Like, all of that has been already done, right? They're at the point where they just show up and they're like, man, this app sucks. Why are we using this app at our big enterprise company? And it's like, because when they wrote it, to your point, there was 2 dudes and 1 tech guy building it, and they were trying to sell it. They didn't really care about, is this going to last 50 years? Because when they started off, the business had enough money for 2 months of operation, or, whatever, pick whatever date it is, right? Just speaking of a hypothetical company. It's like, we're pumping features out to make more money, not thinking, hey, how are we going to have this company last 30, 40, 50 years? And then you just keep tacking onto this core system because it's like, oh, well, to make our next $1 million, we need this tiny little feature. To make our next $1 million is tiny. And then you just build it out and you get to a point where, hey, let's replace the thing. And so many greenfield projects, I would say, I've seen fail because they're like, oh, this brownfield thing sucks. Or not brownfield, this old thing sucks. Let's just replace it all together. And they just like get overzealous and be like, yeah, we could build this in the latest JavaScript framework of our choice and our cool hot backend of choice. And then it's like, okay, well, the old system handles load at this scale.
Right.
Does your system handle that? The old system, here's all the weird quirks that happen, but we all know about them. How are you going to address those so we don't have them in the future? And also so you don't introduce new ones. And like all those things sometimes compound, or you're doing code archaeology. In your case, you've been around, but in other companies, the guy who built the first thing might have been gone for a decade. So you can't go and just call him up and be like, hey, Kevin, why did you do this weird thing on line 52? It's, that looks like junk. Let's throw it away. And then you find out that that was the thing keeping you from losing all your money, or, other things like that just compound to get the greenfield project basically thrown out or shut down.
Yeah, not meaning to get political or anything about it, but like in the recent news, you have the Doge folks, the couple teenagers that they got to go in and look at these COBOL-based systems that basically pay out Social Security, right? And they go, oh, this is awful. Like, yes, but I had to explain this to my dad. And like, my dad's almost 70-something years old. And he's like, I don't understand what the problem is. Let the kids do it. I said, Dad, you don't understand. He's like, there is a certain level of experience that you gain as a software developer where you realize that you just don't touch that system unless you understand how every aspect of it works. Like, you just don't go playing that. Yep, I'm not going to get political. Like, you don't touch old systems like that, especially when they have very critical business functions. Like, that's the reason, like, banks haven't moved off of these old mainframes.
Yeah, that's why we still have COBOL and mainframes, and because the effort to get it working correctly in a new system is not trivial. It's not as easy as saying, oh, this looks bad, let's just delete it and see what happens.
It's not the 5 or 6 major use cases that you could come up just sitting here. It's the 50,000 use cases you haven't considered yet.
Right.
And you don't understand that unless you've been in this business long enough.
Right. But let's also speak to the fact that there could be something in that 50,000 that has been a problem that they might actually find.
Yep. Absolutely. And I'm not saying like Brownfield software is perfect, but like in the grand scheme of things, Brownfield software, they have taken care of 99% of the issues. Now, there's always, so like the system I'm working on now was at one point a greenfield application where I replaced a pre-existing application. And the justification for that was the person who wrote your existing software was insane. I mean that in the nicest way possible. It was just, they just filled with bad practices. Like, in order to do proper surgery to that system, it was just it was actually easier in that case to rewrite it. And it was it was what I just described a couple of minutes ago. It was a 6 to 9 month ordeal to rewrite the software to get it back to the same bar that it was at before the rewrite. And then you push that out into the public and customers started using it. Customers start complaining. It's like, well, this doesn't work the way I expected to. This doesn't work the way I expected to. So you spend 3-4 months just tweaking and adjusting based off customer expectations. And then you get to the point where it's like, okay, now we can start adding new stuff on top of it. But then you rinse repeat for 10 years doing that, just adding new stuff on top of it. you start getting yourself into the same cycle. Like, well, maybe I should rewrite this because I have all this new knowledge. But you have any parent out here will understand this. When you have a 3-year-old, you get to this point where you're like, well, maybe we should have another kid. And you forget about how bad it was the first 6 months of having a kid. Like, just how like little sleep you got, how whiny and poopy the little sucker was. Like having a newborn is an awful experience. Like just lack of sleep, lack of energy, all that good stuff. But then you get to this point where it's like, you know what? Maybe we should do this again. Like, this is a good idea because you have forgotten how bad it was. And software.
This might be a bad time to tell you, Kevin, that my wife and I are expecting.
Hey, man, congratulations.
Welcome to the pain, brother.
I mean, I have 3 sons. Like you go through that, and then eventually you get to the point where he's like, man, I kind of like sleeping. Like, sleeping is great. Yeah. So I'll leave it there. The software, Greenfield software, is just like having a child. It is constant upkeep for a minimum of 8 years before you get to the point where it's like, maybe we should do this again.
This is the best software analogy I've ever heard in my life.
It is. This is way better than the gardening analogy.
Yes.
Like, yeah.
It's much more like raising a child because you're basically that invested in it and your life kind of depends on its life also staying alive. Yeah. But wow, you do forget, and it just seems nice to have new software, new things, new technologies, we're back to your original statement, Alec. We've got the FOMO. Gosh, if we don't get a RAG system built into our search within the next month, we're going to lose all of our customers. We better do it. But to do that, it's going to just rewrite the thing then, because we need it desperately. And then,
Well, it's like a lot of these early AI companies just don't exist anymore because the thing they were doing was just pulled in as a feature under another business. But it was another business that was sustainable without the AI feature. Like, I don't think that a lot of people are going to products because of their fancy AI features. Like, there's probably specific use cases,
right.
But like you see like Apple Intelligence, right? Or Apple non-intelligence, where Apple waited till it was the best timing so they could put out a good polished product. But then everyone's like, this is awful.
Yeah.
This isn't good at all. Like, this isn't helping me.
If someone could create an automatic video creating system that did like whiteboard code that was filled in as I talked about it, and I literally could not have to spend hours editing, that would be a system that I would say AI has won.
And that probably exists, but it'll write it in Java instead of C#, right? Because it'll get
I would
confused.
take it in Java. I don't care. If I just want to talk about let's say I wanted to talk about leak code problem or just a data structure in general. What difference does it make if I'm using Java or C#? I mean, it might matter semantically to someone who only knows C# or Java and just doesn't want to go down that road. But in the end of the day, they're 99% the same thing. And the concept is the data structure, not the code that's implementing it. So I would take
It's like a great startup idea for any of our listeners out there. If you were looking for a startup, you have your first customer, Brian. Test it out for you.
Because I can go out to ChatGPT right now and I can say, hey, give me an outline for an introduction to coding with C# course. And it will tell me all the videos. And then I can say things like, hey, would you estimate how many videos I need, how long, those videos are going to be, so I could kind of generate how long the thing is going to last or whatever. But then I go to try to find an automatic video creation software, and it's like painful.
Yeah, deep research is also another crazy thing. But I think as we kind of come to the end here, Kevin, do you have any last-minute plugs, speaking at any conferences or any of that sort of stuff?
No, I am an organizer for Stir Trek in Columbus, Ohio. So we just announced speakers and tickets are on sale. So if you want to go to the largest developer conference in Central Ohio, let's go to Stir Trek, which is funny because I'm not from Ohio. I'm a Virginia.
Yeah, how'd you get involved with that?
I just know people, man.
Oh, man.
And
he's a people person.
He's in that. He's everywhere.
The power of the network. After that, what am I going to? Actually don't know. I think I have a lot of CFPs out that haven't accepted or rejected me yet. So we'll see. I have no idea.
You could, so I am officially going to be starting up Sci-Fi Dev Con The call for presentations will be on the 17th. It's all virtual. It's a calendar event. You just talk about something tech, add some sci-fi flair to it. So
I'm in. Let's figure it out.
okay,
Let's do it.
I've been wanting to do a quantum leap talk.
then I need your talk.
Yeah,
And you can record it ahead of time and just put it out there, and we'll just release it on a day.
old quantum leap, not this new one.
Oh, the new one was good too.
All right, everybody. Thanks for joining us.
I like the new one.
Check out Sci-Fi Dev Con, and I'll see y'all next time. Bye, everybody.
All right.
Thanks, guys.